We tried to erase them. It backfired. For over a century, America waged open war on the coyote, with poison, traps, bounties, and aerial gunning. We still kill hundreds of thousands of them every year. And in that same century, the coyote didn't just survive it. It got bigger. It spread to nearly every state and every major city. And it changed, physically, into something its ancestors were not. Scientists now know why, and the reason is stranger and more unsettling than a bigger coyote. This is the story of how the coyote transformed itself in barely 100 years, how an animal that used to weigh 25 pounds and eat mice became a deer-killing predator standing in the backyards of every city in America. The answer is written in its DNA, and it involves an animal the coyote was never supposed to breed with. By the end, you'll understand what's actually inside the coyote trotting down your street after dark, and why the thing that made it bigger is the same thing that made it impossible to stop. Start with the observation that didn't add up. For most of American history, the coyote was a western animal, and a small one. A creature of the open prairies and deserts of the middle of the continent, it weighed maybe 20 to 25 pounds. A lean, clever, mid-sized predator that lived mostly on mice, rabbits, insects, and whatever it could scavenge. It was the trickster of the plains, the wily, grinning survivor of 1,000 Native American stories. An animal admired precisely because it endured by wits rather than size. And it stayed in its lane because it had no choice. Wolves, the big apex predators, ruled the rest of the continent, and they did not tolerate a competitor. A wolf pack kills coyotes that trespass on its ground, and for as long as the wolves held the land, the coyote stayed small, careful, and hemmed into the open country of the West. The size of the coyote, for thousands of years, was set by the shadow of the wolf standing over it. Then, sometime in the 20th century, wildlife biologists in the Northeast started noticing coyotes that were wrong. They were showing up in New England and eastern Canada, where coyotes historically weren't, and they were too big. Not 25 pounds. 35, 40, even up toward 50 and beyond. The Adirondack study has documented eastern coyotes reaching 55 pounds, more than double the weight of a western one. They had broader skulls, more powerful jaws, longer legs, bushier tails, smaller ears. They ran in more coordinated groups. And most strikingly, they were doing something western coyotes almost never did. They were killing full-grown deer. Locals didn't know what to call them. Some said coy dog. Some said small wolf. The animals looked like coyotes mostly, but scaled up and filled out, as if someone had taken the desert trickster and rebuilt it for bigger work. For decades, the size was a genuine puzzle. Was it just more food? A response to colder country? Something else? The answer would have to wait for technology that could read the one thing a body can't hide, the code inside its cells. And when scientists finally read it, they found a passenger nobody expected. Here's what the DNA showed, and it rewired how biologists think about these animals. The eastern coyote is not a pure coyote. When researchers sequenced its genome, they found it was a genetic mixture, a hybrid. A typical eastern coyote, by the work of biologists like Roland Kays, comes out to very roughly 2/3 western coyote, around a quarter wolf, and something close to a 10th domestic dog. 3 different canines braided together into one animal. The coyote you see in the east is carrying the genes of the wolf and the dog inside it. And that wolf, DNA, is where the size comes from. When the coyote picked up genes from wolves, it picked up the wolf's blueprint for a bigger body, the broader skull, the heavier jaw, the muscle to match. That's the literal physical answer to the question in the title. Coyotes are getting bigger because along the eastern half of the continent, they are part wolf. The extra size isn't a fluke of diet or climate. It's inheritance, it's written into them. And the mix isn't uniform. It runs like a gradient across the map. Coyotes in the northeast and eastern Canada carry the most wolf, the biggest bodies, the most wolf-like behavior. Move south and the wolf signal fades and the dog signal rises. A coyote in Virginia may average more dog than wolf, and one in the deep south barely a trace of either. It's not a clean new species with a fixed recipe. It's a vast, intermingling population of coyotes smeared with wolf and dog genes in different amounts depending on where you stand, which is exactly why many scientists argue the popular nickname for it is misleading. It's worth being honest about that naming because the science is genuinely divided on it. The internet loves the word coy wolf, and it's catchy, but leading coyote researchers push back hard on it. Their point is that there's no single, uniform hybrid animal you could point to as a distinct new species. The wolf and dog genes are mixed in to wildly varying degrees, and some eastern coyotes carry almost no wolf at all. In their view, this isn't a brand new creature called a coy wolf. It's the same old coyote, Canis latrans, the trickster, that simply absorbed some wolf and dog DNA on its march east and kept right on being a coyote. Whether you call it a coy wolf or just an eastern coyote, though, the physical reality is the same. It's bigger, and the wolf inside it is why. But that only pushes the mystery back a step into a much stranger question. Coyotes and wolves are rivals. Wolves kill coyotes on sight. They compete for the same food, and a wolf pack will not share its ground. In the natural order, these two animals do not breed. They avoid and they kill each other. So, how, in the span of a single century, did the coyote end up carrying so much wolf inside it? What could possibly have thrown these two enemies together? The answer to that is the part that should genuinely unsettle you, because the thing that forced the wolf and the coyote to breed was us. This is the turn in the story, and it's the uncomfortable one. Rewind to the last few centuries of American history, as European settlers spread across the continent. They declared war on big predators, wolves and mountain lions, the animals that threaten livestock. And that war was devastatingly effective. Across the whole eastern side of the continent and into Canada, the wolf was trapped, shot, and poisoned into oblivion, wiped out of region after region until, across most of the east, there were almost none left. Now put yourself in the position of the last few wolves in a place like southern Ontario, a century ago. Your kind has been shredded, the packs are gone, there are almost no other wolves left to breed with, and at that exact moment, moving in from the west, into the forests that clearing and farming had opened up, into the territory the dying wolves could no longer defend, came the coyote. For the first time, a lonely, remnant wolf with no wolf mates available encountered coyotes flooding into its emptied range, and with no other option, the rivals bred. That is the origin of the animal. The first eastern coyote is generally traced to around 1919 in Ontario. Think about how narrow that window was. It required wolves to be almost gone, but not entirely gone, reduced to desperate, mateless individuals, yet still present on the land at the very moment coyotes arrived to fill it. A few decades earlier, the wolves were too numerous and would have simply killed the coyotes. A few decades later, and they'd have been gone completely, with no wolf left to breed at all. The hybrid slipped through a keyhole in history that we, and only we, pried open. We created the conditions for it. By exterminating the wolf, we didn't just leave a hole in the ecosystem, we forced the two species together at the one moment in history when a desperate wolf would accept a coyote as a mate. The bigger coyote in your neighborhood is a direct product of the war we waged on wolves. We tried to erase one predator, and in the empty space we made, we accidentally engineered a new one. Ecologists have a name for the broader phenomenon, the mesopredator release. When you remove the apex predator at the top of a system, the wolf, the cougar, the mid-sized predators beneath it, the mesopredators, are suddenly released from the fear and competition that kept them in check. They expand, they multiply, they grow into the space left behind. The coyote is the textbook case. For as long as wolves ruled, the coyote was boxed in, both by being killed and by being outcompeted. The moment we took the wolf away, we didn't just remove the coyote's rival. We handed the coyote the wolf's empty throne and a few of the wolf's genes to sit on it with. And that new predator turned out to be almost perfectly designed to take everything we'd unintentionally offered it, which is where this goes from a genetic story to something you'll notice on your own street. If a real wildlife mystery is your kind of thing, take 1 second and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel keep making these, because the hybrid we built didn't just get bigger. It used that new body to conquer a continent, including the one habitat no large predator was supposed to be able to live in. Here's what that new genetic recipe actually bought the coyote, and why it matters far beyond size. Each piece of the hybrid pulls its weight. The wolf genes gave it the body and the ability to hunt large prey. Where a western coyote lives mostly on mice, rabbits, and insects, the bigger eastern coyote can bring down an adult white-tailed deer, often hunting in a coordinated family group to do it, the way a small wolf pack would. That single capability rewrote the animal's ecology. Deer are one of the most abundant large animals in the eastern United States, and a predator that can kill them has access to a food supply the old prairie coyote could only scavenge. In parts of the Northeast, coyotes have become a leading predator of deer fawns in the spring, stepping directly into the role the exterminated wolves used to fill. The wolf inheritance also seems to help it survive hard northern winters and dense forest country a pure prairie coyote would struggle in. The bigger body holds heat better and pushes through deep snow. The wolf-like build handles closed forest that the open country coyote never evolved for. That's the quiet key to the whole eastern invasion. The hybrid could live in exactly the cold, wooded, deer-filled landscapes that had always belonged to the wolf because it was now carrying the wolf's toolkit for surviving them. And that dash of domestic dog DNA may carry its own quiet advantage. Genes from an animal that has lived alongside humans for thousands of years, potentially pre-adapting the hybrid to a world full of people. Put those together, and you get one of the most adaptable predators on Earth. An animal that can eat almost anything, live almost anywhere, hunt prey many times larger than the old coyote could, and tolerate cold, forest, farmland, and suburb alike. This isn't a coyote that got a little bigger. It's a fundamentally more capable animal, carrying the tools of 3 different canines at once. Biologists draw a hard line between specialists and generalists. The specialist is exquisitely tuned to one way of life and collapses when the world changes, while the generalist can do a little of everything and thrives on chaos. The wolf was a specialist, and we broke it. The hybrid coyote is the ultimate generalist, and every disruption we throw at the landscape only widens the gap it was built to exploit. And it used those tools to do something no other large American predator has done in modern times. Instead of retreating from human expansion, it advanced into it. While we were pushing wolves and cougars to the margins, the coyote was quietly getting ready to move into the one place we thought we'd kept for ourselves. And the numbers of that takeover are genuinely hard to believe. Consider the scale of what this animal has pulled off, because it is one of the fastest range expansions in modern natural history. The coyote now lives in every state in the continental United States, all 49, every one but Hawaii, plus almost all of Canada and down into Central America. Since the 1950s, it has expanded its range by roughly 40%, about twice the rate of other North American carnivores. It didn't do this in some distant wilderness. It did it while we were watching, while we were actively trying to kill it, spreading into new country year after year, filling in the map. And then it did the truly unexpected thing. It moved into the cities. Coyotes now live in the heart of virtually every major American metro: Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Denver, Seattle, Washington. The Chicago metropolitan area alone is home to an estimated 4,000 of them, threading through parks, golf courses, rail corridors, and cemeteries, often within feet of millions of people who never see them. The signs are often there long before the animal is seen. In Washington, D.C., a park biologist first realized coyotes had arrived when deer killed by cars began mysteriously disappearing, dragged off in the night by something strong enough to move them, and strange yips echoed through the woods after dark. In New York, coyotes have turned up on a bar rooftop in Queens and Central Park, and on the Upper West Side, once setting off a 3-hour police chase that shut down a park. They've been photographed inside convenience stores and trotting across bridges at dawn. A predator that a century ago was confined to the western plains now dens at the edge of town in every corner of the country. And in many of those places, it has effectively become the new apex predator, the largest wild carnivore for hundreds of miles in any direction, the top of the food chain in a landscape that lost its wolves and cougars generations ago. An animal that spent millennia as the middleweight, forever looking over its shoulder, now sits in much of America at the very top. Why could it do this when wolves and cougars couldn't? Because everything the hybrid became, adaptable, omnivorous, clever, tolerant to people, is exactly what city living rewards. The same traits that came out of that desperate wolf-coyote pairing are the traits that make an animal able to live on garbage, rodents, fallen fruit, and the occasional outdoor cat in the cracks of a human world. And it does it almost invisibly. Study after study of city coyotes finds the same thing. They learn the human schedule and hunt around it, shifting to the hours we're asleep, threading the green corridors and drainage ways we ignore, raising pups in plain sight of neighborhoods that have no idea they're there. A city can hold hundreds of coyotes for years before most residents ever see one. Invisibility is its own kind of conquest, and there's evidence the coyotes doing it are changing again, right now. This is the part that turns a historical story into a live one. The coyote isn't a finished product, it's still adapting and unusually fast. Researchers studying urban coyotes have found that city animals often behave differently from their rural cousins. Many are measurably bolder, more willing to explore, more tolerant of the noise and lights and constant presence of people. Biologists like those behind the nationwide urban coyote studies are actively tracking this boldness, trying to measure whether living in the city is selecting for a more confident animal, generation by generation. In some cities, coyotes stay shy and nocturnal, denning at the edge of town and slipping through the dark unseen. In others, they've grown visibly brazen, active in daylight, unbothered by traffic and crowds. It's evolution and behavior shifting in real time on a timescale of decades, driven by the pressures of the human landscape. Think about how fast that is. Most animals adapt over thousands of years. The coyote has transformed its genome, its body, its range, and its behavior in roughly a single century. Biologists point out it has expanded its territory about twice as fast as any other North American carnivore, and it did it in the teeth of the most determined extermination campaign ever aimed at an American animal. This is not a species slowly drifting. It's a predator sprinting through evolution while we watch. And here is the detail that ties the whole story into a knot. We have spent a century trying to control coyotes by killing them. It is not a small effort. Across the United States, something like 400,000 coyotes are killed every year through hunting, trapping, and government predator control. 400,000 a year for decades. By any normal measure, that kind of pressure should have crushed the population long ago. Instead, over the exact same span, the coyote expanded to all 49 states and moved into every city. It doesn't work. It has never worked. Worse, it may be backfiring. When you heavily persecute a coyote population, you disrupt its pack structure, and disrupted packs respond by breeding earlier and having larger litters. Kill more coyotes, and the survivors can simply produce more coyotes. When a stable pack is intact, usually only the dominant pair breeds and litters stay small. Blow that structure apart with heavy killing, and more females breed, litters swell, and pups survive at higher rates as competition drops. It's a biological counterpunch. The animal has turned our single most aggressive tool against us. The harder we hit the population, the faster it refills. Every pressure we've applied, exterminating its rivals, clearing the land, hunting it relentlessly, has only made it bigger, bolder, more numerous, and more at home among us. And that raises the one question this whole story has been circling toward. So here's the question that actually matters. A bigger, bolder, deer-killing predator living in every city in America and evolving to be more comfortable around us by the year. How frightened should you actually be? This is where honesty matters more than a scary headline, so here is the real answer, in full. Coyote attacks on humans are genuinely rare. For all their numbers and all their range, these animals overwhelmingly want nothing to do with people. The vast majority go out of their way to avoid us, hunting at the edges of the night and vanishing before dawn. You are not being stalked. A healthy coyote that sees you will almost always run. Serious attacks on adults are exceptional events, not a daily risk, and in the great balance of things, coyotes do far more good than harm. They control rodents, rabbits, and overabundant deer. And by keeping down the mid-sized nest raiders like raccoons and outdoor cats, they can actually help songbird populations recover. In city after city, the coyote is quietly doing the unpaid work of the missing wolf the population control and ecosystem needs and no longer had. Removing them tends to make rodent and nuisance problems worse, not better. But there is a real edge to it, and it's worth stating plainly. As coyotes lose their fear of people, almost always because people feed them, deliberately or through open garbage and pet food, the boldness that helps them thrive in the city starts to curdle into conflict. Bites on small children and pets taken from yards and leashes do happen, and the reports have climbed as the animals have spread. Documented attacks now trace across dozens of states. And a bold urban coyote follows a recognizable escalation. Active in daylight, unafraid of people, approaching pets, that almost always begins with an animal that learned humans mean food. The terrifying part was never that the coyote wants to hurt you. It's subtler and stranger than a monster in the yard. It's that we have, without ever deciding to, spent a century running a giant, unintentional experiment in breeding a predator to thrive on us, selecting through everything we did for the biggest, boldest, most adaptable, most human-tolerant version of the animal, and then inviting the result into our own neighborhoods. We built a predator this capable, moved it in among us, and then over and over taught it not to be afraid. The coyote didn't invade our world. We remade it to fit ours and handed it the keys. So step back and look at the whole shape of it. We set out to answer a simple question. Why are coyotes getting bigger? And the answer turned out to be a mirror. They're getting bigger because they're part wolf. They're part wolf because we destroyed the wolves and forced the survivors to breed with coyotes. They conquered the cities because everything that hybrid became is what our world rewards. And they've shrugged off a century of killing because our persecution only made them breed harder. Every step of the coyote's transformation has our fingerprints on it. We didn't witness this animal change from the outside. We caused it at every turn. The exterminated wolf, the cleared forest, the emptied predator niche, the endless war that taught the survivors to breed faster and fear us less. The bigger coyote isn't a natural mystery that happened near us. It's a mirror of us, a predator reshaped again and again by everything we did to the land and to the animals that were here before it. The coyote at the edge of town tonight is not the small desert trickster its grandparents were. It's bigger, certer, bolder, carrying the wolf we tried to erase inside its own blood, and it is still, quietly, becoming whatever our world makes it become next. And the wolf inside the coyote isn't the only ghost that refuses to stay gone. One range over, a big cat that was declared officially extinct decades ago keeps turning up on trail cameras anyway, confirmed, photographed, in mountains where the science says there shouldn't be a single one left. That mystery is already on the channel. Subscribe and I'll show you the predator that came back from the dead.